If you want to be happy and have money, don't you think it should take a long time and it should be hard? Right? That to me has been the most interesting thing. In this world that everything's so fast, and this world where one or two people look like Mark Zuckerberg or Travis, like where you can point to one or two people. You know, I don't know if you heard, there's 7.7 billion of us. But because you can point to one or two people that got it fast and a lot, all of a sudden everybody thinks it should be fast and a lot. At 34 years old, after working for 12 years, helping build my family business, I left my family business and I had no money. If you're not making long-term decisions, you will be vulnerable. The market's changing very quickly, and anybody who's looking for short-term stuff gets short-term stuff and then gets hurt in the long term. Things like Airbnb. Guys, Airbnb shouldn't have been invented by Brian and Joe. Airbnb should have been invented by Marriott, but Marriott is looking short-term and isn't creating business models to put themselves out of business. Uber should have not been created by Garrett and they should have not been created by Garrett and Travis. They should have been created by the guy or girl that owned the most medallions in New York City, or by Greyhound. If you sit here tonight and you're doing well, you're in danger, because there's somebody young and hungry that has the internet, which is a platform that creates a zero cost to get into the game, that's coming after your shit. So if you don't do what I do, which is wake up every single morning and try to put yourself out of business, somebody else is gonna do it for you. It is much more fun, my friends, to put yourself out of business than have somebody else do it for you. Fast is bad. Fast if you have talent and the right intent is amazing. Fast if you want cash immediately. So, please understand the world you're living in. Take it into context. Understand how remarkable this era is. Biggest thing I fear is regret. Regret is scary. Resentment is very scary. The biggest reason I push kids to do what they want versus what their parents want is because I'd rather them and their parents have 5 or 6 or 7 years of bad than 80. Because it gets very ugly when you're 60 and they're 80 and you lived your life based on what they wanted and now you resent them. It gets real ugly real fast. I would rather you have the pain for the next 5 or 6 years of fighting and then have one of two things happen, which I think both are amazing. Number one, you were right. You were right, and you are an amazing fashion designer, not an engineer, and you built a real company, and your parents are gonna be very, very proud. Or, you were wrong. You suck at fashion design. Nobody liked it. But at least for yourself, you never have to live the rest of your life asking yourself, what if? You win both ways. You live in a culture, I know, I watch. You live in a culture with a lot of expectations. You live in a culture where parents treat their kids as a property that indicates who they are. So does most of the world. This is not a Southeast Asia thing. This is not a Indonesia thing. This is a world thing. Parents are insecure too. And they like their kids closing their gap. We have to start talking about this. Because now that it costs $0 to start a Spotify podcast, now that you can do that at 9 p.m., now there's nothing left. In 1974, not having money and time was an excuse. In 2019, it is not. And so the only thing left is this. Not this, this. Practical risk is something that I've been thinking a lot about. A lot of people tell me they can't take the chance of going and doing what they want to do, whether it's a different job, whether that's, by the way, I've gotten 100 emails in the last 6 months of people that needed the courage to shut down their startup and get a job because they were worried about the ramifications of being made fun of for not executing on their business. whatever it is, as you sit here tonight, I want to deploy and I want to start talking about practical risk. And what practical risk means to me is the thing that I did not understand until I started getting thousands of emails a year from individuals is we're fucking fancy. We're fucking fancy. It's not that you can't, it's that you're not willing to give up dumb shit for a better life. You're not willing to go backwards. You're not willing to make yourself dramatically happier, to move out of your home and downsize and go into a different neighborhood. You're not willing to go backwards. That to me is fascinating. The fact that things, whether home, car, watch, clothes, going out, is holding people back from a substantially happier life is fascinating to me and something that we need to debate. Because at the end of the day, that one at bat is all we've got. And so if I can absolutely push you one tangible item, I see some people have pads and pens, and I'm fascinated by that. Go, ready? Go to a fucking FUCKING retirement home, spend time, collect data, realize regret is the worst, and do something about it. Got it? Awesome. Let's clap it up for her. This is the greatest era to be alive. It is. There's plenty going on in the world, plenty going on in my country, plenty going on in the world. But when you look at the macro data, this is the greatest time to be alive, and you happen to be living in a great place for my thesis. You live in a place where this country lives its life here. And the cost for you to enter it and do something for yourself and your family, $0. I do not want to hear that you don't have money. I don't want to hear that somebody else is further along, because nobody else's life matters. This is an inside game. Inside. Start making content. Start talking to the world about what you either like or you know. Do it every day. You have to deploy self-awareness. My friends, self-awareness is the most important word. If you don't know who you are, you have no shot. But do not be embarrassed of who you are. When I knew that I was an entrepreneur in the 80s, I got D's and F's in school, and that was not acceptable in the 80s and 90s in America. If you were a bad student in America in the 80s and 90s, you were a loser. My friends' parents looked at me as I was a loser. But I knew who I was. I was self-aware. I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to go and sell things on the weekend. I wanted to study the prices of wine and baseball cards instead of studying for school. I knew who I was. Playing video games seemed like a waste of time 20 years ago. Now there are people who make $50 million a year playing video games. If there is something you know and you like and you're passionate about, but it's not cool right now or important, do not deviate away from your thing. Triple down on your thing. The other thing is, be self-aware. How many people here are an entrepreneur or want to be? Raise your hands. I'm just curious. It's a lot of hands. The reality is, most of you can't be successful. I mean that. I'm not saying it to razz. It's rare to be a successful entrepreneur. It's hard. It's a real talent. We don't think it's a talent now because it's so easy to say you're one. One of the most important things about being self-aware is knowing, do you have the stomach to be an entrepreneur? Putting entrepreneur in your Instagram account, easy. Living the life of an entrepreneur where nobody else is on the line except you, hard, lonely, scary, difficult. If you do it because it's cool or you think it's right or you're not self-aware, it leads to depression and loss of money. If you deploy self-awareness and realize you're a number 2, a number 3, a number 4, you find an entrepreneur and you win. Self-awareness. You have to understand who you are. Without it, you are massively vulnerable in society. And the fact that we now live in a world where you're more than welcome to be what you are, so much more. Maybe not in your family because your parents want you to be a doctor and a lawyer and an engineer. But in the world, yes. And so I highly recommend self-awareness. It is easily, in my opinion, I believe that self-awareness and the ability to actually give without expectation are the 2 bricks of happiness. And it's been a big factor for me, which has allowed me to go fast. When you're stable, you can go fast because you're not worried about judgment. I've been able to do a lot of things because I'm not scared to lose. Because if I lose, it's my loss. If I lose money or time, it's my loss, not yours. I don't care what you say in the comments. That lack of fear is what gives an entrepreneur an advantage. That lack of fear is what lets somebody live life in happiness.